Hi, everybody. I'm this one. I'm Nguyen. I'm in the middle. Rohit asked me when we talked about this to give some thoughts and ideas, and as we lead into the panel with a couple folks. So I'm Joe and Rohit. On behalf of the MMA board, APAC has asked me to talk about this stuff and give some ideas. So let's just jump right in. We don't have too much time. First thing, which I think everyone sort of has noticed over the years recently, is that creative and media have gotten back together again. And for those, and I say again because I think it was together before, and I think the only one that person that might have been there where it was maybe Soames when it was together. And then it split up, and that's Mad Men days. If you watch the show, right? Media became money. And so the agencies split up media and creative, made money, and then, now it's like getting back together again. And you see this, and not just this, Essence Mediacom, Publicis One, right? And a bunch of other Nexus, whatever that is. So they're coming back together again. So that's one thing. Why? So media, right? Start out age, gender, and then we get into digital and search, clicks, website, all this, lots of stuff, right? We can measure the wazoo out of it. Over here it was creative, and it was product distinctiveness, brand empathy, inspiration, motivation, familiarity, emotion, surprise, attention. How do you measure that? Or how have we been measuring it, right? Surveys, love surveys. Kantar, Nielsen, tons of money on surveys over the years. And that's how it has been, but what we have now is that data is now informing both creative and media at scale, right? So there is AI solutions to get this stuff at scale. Then you can tie this stuff up with this stuff, and then you have DCAs and DCOs, dynamic creatives, dynamic creative optimization, all that stuff. So, coming back together again. Powered by data. Which is why I voted for data just now, Dave. Now, data is key, but obviously we talked about machine learning, AI. The ad industry is facing too much data, increase in data sources, connectivity from new APIs, new systems, increase in resolution, how deep we get to the data, and obviously the volume as a whole. Unstructured data, if you don't know what that means, another day. Deterministic and probabilistic data, right? You can figure that out another time, go Google it. But to tie this stuff up, it's machine learning, right? And we talk about machine learning and all that stuff, but it's, the word AI has been sort of overused, confused. So AI has different branches, right? Machine learning is one. You teach it, it learns, you use it, you get the data out of it to use for other data. And then it gets deep learning, which is using networks, but creating neural networks, like how it's actually mirrored after the brain neurons. So that's deep learning. You take that, then you do NLP, natural language processing, to understand context, understand sentiments, understand all that stuff, and then you use that and you do generative AI. You use that and you create new things out of it, right? Which is what happened. Has anyone here heard of Uncreative Agency? Has anyone here run it? You did because I gave it to you, but anyway. Okay, so it's no longer up. It only ran 16,000 times, and it was created by RANDDB Hybrid Creativity as part of an experiment. They asked you a few questions. I put in beer, Vietnam, and then it created for me 3 ideas for a media plan or media execution. Right? This is all AI generated. So TikTok brew battle. Create a virtual TikTok. I know you can read that stuff. Now, but this was all created, and I believe it was ChatGPT. And these 3 are also created, right, by probably Dali. And so, yeah, this whole thing. So that's done. Who here is going to have a job? Well, we'll talk about that a little bit. But really, when I read this and I'm like, okay, great, you can talk about this stuff. Execute that, right? That's a whole different question. That they can toss this stuff out, but try to execute it. I think we know here, when agencies know how hard this is. So yeah, but this is really cool. And it's no longer running, so too bad. But again, this stuff, what generates out of there, it's data in, right? Crap data in, crap data out. So that's why data provenance is key. You train an AI system on crap data, you get crap, right? You ask it, this stuff looks nice because they actually have filters to actually push out the right kind of things. But ultimately, when you start playing around with data or AI solutions, if you're training it with crap data, it's useless. But we'll talk about that later. So I would like to welcome Linh, Neeraj. They'll set it up as well. So as I said, please come. Well, they're setting it up. Please welcome Nguyen Linh from TNA Ogilvy. Come up this way. And Neeraj Karambelkar. So I forgot to sort of add a disclaimer to Rohit and now to you. I've never worked for an agency in my life. I've worked with agencies, I've worked around agencies. I actually own a sort of small independent somewhere, and I have fought with agency procurement many, many times. I hope none of them are here. But with that, I got a seat now. So I'm going to address some of this stuff. So I will just start right off because I know we have an issue with timing sometimes. So the first one is creative and media coming back together again. So I'll start with, you've heard my thoughts on it. So Linh, what any thoughts on that, or what are your thoughts?
I think, I think creative and data have been always together, right, Neeraj? It's just that for the past 3 years, the amount of data and the type of data and the channels that can, the resource of data have been evolving so much, so that, like creative industry have to face the challenge that how we can process all of those data, how to, like take the insights from those data and how to pick the right insight and come up with, which I call more effective creative. Because in my 14 years of experience working in a creative agency, we are oftenly challenged by our clients that like whether our creative is effective, how to measure it. So and also like as an agency leaders, a lot of the time we are challenged by our creative person as well. That being creative. Everybody thinks that the creative work is very good, but when we have a kind of debate from like different teams, let's not mention about client and agency, but within like internal team, like we will have a lot of debate whether like this idea is good, this idea is not good. So I think like the relationship is still there. It's just a question on, like how we can apply the data for more effective creative and, like more fun experiment and, like speed up in catching up with the consumer trend right now.
So Neeraj, creative media coming back to again, you're a publicist, right? So it's happening, right? So it was it used to be easy if the client's not happy with a campaign, well, it's the creative's fault. It's creative was not good, or the media plan's not good. Now, if you're together, you can't just say, well, you can't just do that anymore. So, what do you think?
I think that's a good one, right? But I'll just take a step back to what's happening at the client's end as well. Creative and media, they are coming back together. I think the movement started a few years back. What's increasingly happening is they are coming under one roof now. And that's where the client is moving to. We used to have different teams, media, brand, and so on and so forth. Now, the overall objectives and the overall goals of each unit within marketing is also getting consolidated. And that's why clients are increasingly looking at partners who share the long-term vision of theirs and have the ability, both in terms of skill set and in terms of scale, right, infrastructure and others, practices as well, which can match that long-term vision. So yeah, it's not just limited to creative and media, it's everything that's under the domain of Marcom, that's getting consolidated of sorts. And it's getting consolidated with advertisers and agency networks who have been together for long, who understand each other well, and who have the intent of carrying on that relationship for long. I'll give you the example of Constellation, right? So Publicis, the network has worked with Samsung for many, many decades now. In this market, the relationship is older than 15 years, right? Whether it's creative, content, media, data, commerce, we've been the partners throughout. So I'm just extending your point, I'm not hijacking it. I'm just saying that it's not creative and media alone, it's going beyond that, and that's the reason they are coming up with and aligning with the philosophy of, dedicated agencies like Constellation, which is 100+ talents, team, which is dedicated to one advertiser, covers the entire spectrum of Marcom, and yeah, I mean, is partner in not just the immediate or mid-term goals, but in the long-term goals as well. So I think that's where the shift is happening right now. It's more of consolidation. There is a lot of consolidation happening on the other side, but I think that's a different subject altogether.
Yeah, when it comes back, I'll point this at Linh. When it comes back to measurement is going to be an issue. And what are your thoughts about like measurement? And again, that goes back to data, right? And how you're going to handle that when creative media coming back together, making sense of it all.
In terms of measurement, normally when we work with a client, especially for integrated campaigns or in an integrated, objective, like Neeraj mentioned, for example, when we work for the Coca-Cola company, for example, we form our network agency, so not just Ogilvy, but we have a MediaCom team, we have shopper team, for example, in one group, but we form that team, from different source of the talent we have. One team working together, and together with client, we set, an objective to go together. So from that objective, of course, we make sure that those objectives are, measurable, thanks to the tools, to the, technology that we have applying into, data. Then we can, lead to identify our contribution to the business growth. For example, to, how the brand grow in terms of sales, in terms of trials. So thanks to all the technology right now, actually we can measure it. So not like 10 years ago, it was kind of hard to, define whether, the business growth is really from a piece of creative, but, today we can actually do that with the technology.
So, Neeraj, following on that, okay, and it's data, it's measurement, there's investment needed, right, with a view of 3 to 5 years, right? How is that going to impact the business of an agency network, right? What are you guys are thinking about that in terms of, oh my God, what am I going to? Are we investing enough? Are we investing, in the right place?
I think that's a very important question and a very important criterion, right, for agencies to survive 5, 10, 15 years down the line. It's how fast are you adapting with the technological landscape evolving? How ready are you? And how soon are you ready, right? In most cases, you have to be ready before the advertiser raises the need, before your clients do that. But I think in this regard, the networked agencies, I think they have a slight advantage here because, when you have an international presence, a multi-market presence, then everything moves much faster in terms of technological, knowledge sharing, capability building, and skill set development. I think they have a slightly better edge than the rest. But yes, these investments, what comes along is you make these investments firstly to stay relevant, and then of course over a period of time with consolidation of all these services and clients' investments, you become profitable eventually. But I think with most cases, the idea is to stay relevant, be more useful and more meaningful to the advertisers' needs. And I think that's where the network agencies, they prioritize the investment and readiness to meet the future.
Yeah. So actually from Ogilvy side, we always try to reserve 5% of our effort, both in terms of financially and resources, to invest into experimenting, like new things. Of course, for the first 1 or 2 years, it may go nowhere. But the historical fact shows that maybe 10% of those experiment turn into something that help us to go ahead with the trend and be the first to introduce some of the product out in the market. That is the first type of investment. The second investment, especially during the COVID outbreak for the past 3 years, we have decided to invest into some new talent that normally a creative agency, for example, would not have in the portfolio. For example, we have a data analyst, for example. So it doesn't mean that we step into the work of our data sister companies. It's just that we realize that when the need of being more integrated, the demand, the rising demand from our clients of we working together with all other capabilities, we realize that if we don't have the right person who understand the expertise language of the other capability, it's very hard to work together. It's very hard to deliver a more effective integrated work. So for few years, we have new capability, just people trying to experiment.
Well, I mean, I'm going to jump on that more, right? But my thing is jobs and roles, right? So how many of these people who are agencies will no longer have the current job they're holding, and how are you going to retrain them into new roles for whatever? I mean, are there thoughts about that?
You want to go first?
I was going to go
okay.
because she spoke last.
I don't think any of the jobs will be lost as such, right? What might
the roles, not the jobs, right? I mean,
so I'll tell you. I'll give you an example, right? And I'm not sure if that answers the question. So what technology might help us in is become a partner in sharing the volume of content that's created, right, for your various social media destinations. What will happen is it's a voluminous job. It's a laborious task, right? It might pay well to some agencies, but yeah, ultimately it's a lot of labor. What technology might help us is sharing that load of creating a lot of content, which perhaps does not need that much, creative input, perhaps, and that will free up the creative resources and other resources as well in doing something that's perhaps creatively or otherwise a little more satisfactory, right? So yes, I think, I don't know, what would you call them in terms of titles, but in terms of what it's doing to a content creator today, will his or her life get better? I think it definitely will, because they'll be more engaged in doing something that creatively satisfies them much more, right? And similarly, other things, similar technological advancements are happening in media, in commerce, and in other practices as well. So I think, the roles will get a little more solidified. They might become a little more meaningful than they are currently, perhaps because of the volume that junior executives have to deal with. Yeah.
Lynn?
Okay. I think in terms of talent, for all of the talent, agency talents out there, there is an urgent requirement for them to be more versatile, because everything is changing, new things happening every day. So if we as the agency talents can be fastly, like catch up with the trend, then it's very hard to, to deliver the work. So, I don't think that there are roles that, like, of course, there will be roles that may not be, necessary for the agency anymore. But it is for the talents to know that, like, they need to, like, learn fast and to adapt into, like, new change. And talking about, for example, I just take an example, right? In AI, so a lot of people, a lot of discussion right now saying that, like, whether AI will replace creative personnel in agency, and I don't think so, because at the end of the day, like, AI is backed by data, and data, how, like, how many data out there we can have is still a limited source of data. But the brain, the human person brain is unlimited in terms of creativity. So I truly believe that the data and the AI, the machine learning would help us to, like Neeraj said, to free up some of our times, like, to focus more on the creative high level work, and, like, less the AI, like, do all the manual things. So I hope that would help the talents in agency have a more balanced work life. Because a lot of talent in agency
You don't
think
look
that,
at the spreadsheets
like,
anymore.
yeah. So it's more of the requirement and not, about the changing the role.
Also, technology will help us with what's worked and what's not worked in the past, right? So as far as those areas of expertise is concerned, that's taken care of by technology. When it comes to true out-of-the-box thinking, something that you're trying for the first time, I think that's where, most of our creative folks would spend their time, which is, ideally what everybody wants.
I love it. I mean, I agree. I mean, the AI and everything, they're tools, right? They're just tools. You just have to learn to use them to make things better, right? They're not going to replace anybody. They're just better tools to do certain things. So we've got about 5 minutes left. So I'm going to shift the conversation to our last thing, which is, how will the relationship between the brand advertiser and agency change when it's now dealing with one and not like 2 different pitches and all that kind of fun stuff, and data is performing all this stuff, so that the attribution modeling, understanding what worked and what doesn't work, becomes more transparent? Right? How do you think that agency, the relationship and the compensation relationship will change, can change?
So, like I said initially, right, the battleground is shifting from agencies to networks now, right? So it's not between agencies. Clients don't like having 7 agencies on their roster either. They want one partner to understand their end-to-end needs and also align with the long-term vision that, the advertiser has. So yes, you're right, when everything is housed under one roof, then it's the holistic responsibility that lies with the network or with your agency partner. So I think conversations will move to that rather than, of course, there will be domain specialists, there will be domain specific conversations and those meetings as well. But I think the larger picture will come into play here, and the expertise of your agency partner to be able to carry that load along with the advertiser, I think that will take the center stage. So yes, in terms of relationships, it will be far more business focused, outcome focused, which it already is. But yes, it will be more of, what is the network bringing into to the table, and how is the network adding value rather than as a collective rather than individual pieces. So I think that's where the relationship is headed.
So you took the easy part. What about compensation? What do you think, Linh?
Okay, the compensation is
I got lucky. Yeah, you were.
Okay, so let me touch on the relationship first, because I'm more passionate about that, and then maybe we touch later on the compensation, right? For the relationship, actually, like with the trend of, client wants to have a more integrated model, and like all capabilities fall under one roof. And I think most of, many of the agency fellows out there would be very willing to, to experiment that model, and, willing to work with different capabilities to be the service providers for our clients. But in the same time, I think the ideal relationship that like I would love to have with my clients, that they will enable us to like for the agency, from being the expert partner, like meaning creative partner, media partner, or technology partner, to becoming a business partner. Because only when we can, only when we are considered as a business partner, the conversation will be more transparent. If we talk about transparency, and like we can work and we can form the team to customize. Although we talk about integration, right? But we also talk about how we can customize that integrated team to serve to a specific client. So that is more of the relationship that I'm looking for when working with clients. Now, in terms of compensation, right? Of course, agency have to. So just in my opinion, right? Of course, agency have to ensure like basic revenue to like ensure the operation, and some profit rates that we need to like for our business. But I think like just from TNA Ogilvy side, we are willing to explore different like compensation model, even like even if the client wants to make it on a business result base. But because we are open, we would love to have our clients to be like open to be the business partner as well. Yeah. So everything can be like can be put on the table to discuss, as long as like the two sides can come to a conversation.
Yeah, I think on compensation, it starts with commercials largely, and again, it's a sensitive as well as a never-ending topic. But I think the way advertisers have started to look at things right now is they have started to realize that they've started to look at the sum rather than the parts, right? So as long as the sum of the whole is in their favor, they don't worry about the line items. And I think that's a very good way of looking at optimizing your overall investments and budgets. And also it helps agencies optimize and monetize better. So I think it's a win-win for both. That's what I'm saying. We are moving more towards the network era now. So I think these things are becoming more important and more valuable for both the sides. Yeah.
Cool. And our time's up, but I'm just going to have one last thought on this topic. Again, I'm not an agency. I've talked to brands and stuff like that. So my thought is, with data, with tech, with everything, attribution modeling out, 10 years time, it is possible that a Coca-Cola can say, you're my agency for Vietnam, for whatever it is, you'll get paid based on 2% of every single can of Coke sold in Vietnam, right? And that's it. I'm not asking, I'm just throwing it out there. It's my thought, right? And it and from them, you're like, well, it's weird, but no, well, it's a cog. Marketing is now a cost of goods sold. Marketers like that. I've talked to P&G heads, and they're like, yeah, ideally, if we could actually verify, but then my thought is, if data could do that, well, it'll take investment, it'll take 10 years. But I personally think you'll get there. Any last thoughts on that?
I think just to add to that, look, attribution models have been getting evolved for the last 10 odd years. And we have much more clarity on what has been your agency partner's contribution to overalls. And even in terms of compensation, parts of what you just said have been introduced already in the contracts, right? To what extent will it go?
Performance, yeah.
Yes, only time will tell, but I think we are on that path already. Yeah, so I agree.
Align with that.
Cool. All right. And we're ending alignment. That's pretty cool. Well, thank you very much, Neeraj and Linh.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.